Hi, this is your host, Kristen Howe. I'm so excited to welcome you to our call with today's guest, Bill Farber. A successful attorney by day and a profound energy worker by night, for over 20 years, Bill has helped thousands of people increase their energy, creativity, success, harmony, happiness, and personal power with his powerful alignment sessions. And during this call, you'll actually personally experience how this energy works, and you'll even receive an actual energy wave transmission to directly experience qualities of the source of abundance. And that is so powerful, everyone. I have to tell you, I'm really excited about that. Also on the call, you'll discover that abundance from outside of us is an illusion. You'll find out why we cannot increase abundance by increasing desires. Ooh, that's interesting. You'll discover why we want abundance in the first place. You'll also find out how abundance is our own basic nature, and anything less than abundance is contrary to that nature. And you'll discover why visualizing abundance without direct connection to source of abundance is ineffective. So this is such a chock-full call. I can't wait. I can't wait for the energy wave transmission. Bill, thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to the call.
Thank you very much, Kristen. It's very exciting to be with you.
Yeah, it's so great having you here. I can't wait for everything we're going to talk about. Can you share a little of your story? Some of the, here we are, we're talking about abundance and manifestation. Maybe some of the turnarounds that you've experienced in your life where you shifted into abundance or you shifted into manifesting abundance. I think that would be really helpful to hear some of that.
Sure, absolutely. Well, for me, this journey, we could say, started around 42 years ago when I was just getting ready to start law school. And I was introduced to meditation through my sister, Mary, who still to this day is very active, and she just got back from India. She spent a month in India on an ashram. I've never had the time off and the opportunity to do that, although I kind of lived vicariously through her in that regard. But she encouraged me to try to, so I did, took a program in meditation, and back then I would have to say it was 1971, and I was just coming off of a college quote unquote education. I use the term loosely. And during those, it was very kind of tumultuous times back then. There was a lot of unrest and a lot of chaos on the campuses, and also there was a huge shift in consciousness that was going on, primarily among the younger people, college age and a little bit younger. It was not the best conducive time to serious study or that type of thing, but it was kind of a frenetic time, I guess, one way to describe it. When I finished college, I was very kind of aimless, I guess would be the word for it, and uncertain as to what I wanted to do. And I found that when I began the meditation practice, for me, I would have to say instantaneous, where there was a shift that happened within myself, the experience of myself. And along with that shift, which is, I guess, the best way to describe it, was a sense of very deep, profound quietness or silence or peace that was so obvious and evident to me that I never really was aware of before. Once I became aware of that and was able to tap into that, regularly, I started to notice that the way I felt about myself shifted automatically without doing affirmations or doing anything like that. It was just a spontaneous shift. And I started to have a feeling like, you know what, I could actually do this law school thing. Whereas before I thought, no way, no way. So there was more of a positive, you could say, expectation, a sense of inner certainty as to what I was going to do was going to turn out properly or correctly. And I found, to my amazement, that I was an honor student in law school. And this I would have imagined even a month before the meditation practice began. I didn't think I had the tools or the wherewithal to do something like that. And I did this while working full time and going to school at night. And so I amazed myself, quite honestly, at that time that I was able to do this successfully. And since that time, it propelled me into really wanting to know not only what meditation is, but what is this aspect of ourselves that's there, but remains hidden somehow, or remains out of sight or out of touch. That's so profound that just tapping into it for a brief period of time can shift us so dramatically without really intentionally doing anything to shift ourselves. In other words, it's spontaneous, the word I'm looking for. So over the years, I developed a very, very deep interest in, we could say, Eastern type philosophies or meditation traditions, and that evolved into different traditions of healing, which led me to energy work around the 1989 or so. And that was a major, huge discovery for me that, and it was a step beyond meditation. In meditation, basically you're tapping into yourself and you're bringing that out into the world, you say indirectly. But with energy work, you're actually directing energy to a person or persons or situations, some specific recipient. And essentially you're sharing that connection with that inner quietness. You're sharing it directly with another. That was, first of all, I didn't know it was possible. And secondly, the fact that one could learn to do that just completely blew me away. So that was my new toy around 1989, 1990. It was like you discover, all of a sudden you have gold buried in your backyard or something like that.
Right.
This is even closer than your backyard. It's right inside of you.
Right.
So I did a lot of training in various things, and primarily Reiki, and I was Reiki master, and I've taught hundreds of people over the years. But then you could say I stumbled upon or discovered these energy wave transmission processes. And basically it was a very non-dramatic way of that it happened. Basically what happened was I was invited to be an energy facilitator at a workshop in California. Some close friends of mine were facilitating this workshop. One of them was Deborah Poneman, who's been a guest on your show, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Love
Deborah.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. So she invited me along with Janet Atwood, who was her co-presenter, who is a pretty well-known author and facilitator in her own right. These are two phenomenal, amazing people. And I was so honored they invited me to do this. And I thought, well, I'd like to do something instead of just doing the Reiki, which people really appreciated, not to diminish it at all. But I wanted to have something unique and different that really they hadn't experienced before to share with the people there. And I really didn't know what that was. So I was sitting in my backyard. It's a beautiful day in the summer. I just had a pad of paper. And I just kind of proposed the question, what can I do? And very simply, I just started to get, it wasn't like going into a trance or seeing some kind of a flash of light or anything that dramatic. Or it was very simple information that just came, but it flowed so effortlessly. And basically it said, do this, 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 and this. It was extremely simple. It was so simple that I thought, well, where's the rest of it? I'm waiting for the rest of it. But that was it. So I thought, okay, well, everything in my life that's ever been dramatic or really effective has always been very, very simple. And I thought that's a good sign. So I phoned close students. She came by and I did these energy wave transmissions with her, and very, very successful. And the thing I found encouraging was that she was able to feel each energy wave without me describing what it was supposed to be. So that was, to me, a sign or a very specific feedback that, yes, these are, in fact, what they purported to be. And then I decided that I was going to do this at this workshop, which was going to be like the next weekend. So I just took a chance and did it with a group, and it was great. So ever since then, I've been, amongst other things, using these energy waves with groups of people. I've done teleconferences and transmissions many, many, many times since then, as well as one-on-one sessions. And it's been very successful, and it's kind of evolved over time, too. An additional wave actually came later on, and I think we're going to make time to do that today, too.
Oh, good.
So you can experience that. So that's a very, very brief summary. Now, of what I'm doing, as far as manifesting, I would say, first of all, the fact that those waves, the way they came to me, was directly manifesting. But it was, as I said, effortless, utterly effortless. Now, I'm not saying that sometimes we don't need to work hard to produce something that we want to create. The two things do not conflict with one another. However, it is possible that at the highest level of manifestation that it starts with just an impulse, an intention, and then that intention becomes tangible directly. And I think in order to do that is a matter of connecting with that, what we call that source of abundance, and functioning from there or as close to there as we can.
Okay, so you say abundance from the outside of us is an illusion, and that's because it's actually within us?
That's what I must have said.
I love that.
I like that too.
Yeah.
I wish I could take credit for that one.
I love that. So connecting to, first of all,
when I say don't take credit, those sometimes when I say these things, especially when I talk to people like you, there's something that happens, a very deep connection with that source. We could say the source of abundance, and things come through me that I don't figure them out. I would say sometimes that I just even blurt them out would be a more accurate way of conveying it.
I love that.
Yeah, and I say that it really wasn't my words in the sense that my personality came up with it. It just feels like a direct truth, and I just come out with it. And what I meant by that, in retrospect, there's no doubt that we have things in our lives that reflect abundance.
Sure.
There's no question. I'm not denying that. I like my 2 Cadillacs in the garage. I don't deny it. I don't get up in the morning and pray to them. And if they go away, it won't be a tragedy either. But, there are reflections of abundance in our environment that we appreciate. But why do we appreciate them? The reason that we appreciate them, in my opinion, is how we feel when we see them or when we know that we have them.
Right.
Right? Now, that feeling is not outside, is it?
Nope.
The feeling is utterly and totally inward.
Completely.
Now, to use that same example, you get a nice new, shiny new Cadillac with really nice, wheel covers. Because the last one I got had these, it's a nice car, but they had these chintzy wheel covers that people could steal. Like they come in, they pop them off in like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
So that's a better example. So I had this beautiful Cadillac, and I really loved the car. It was so cool to have. Then one day I came back from the office and I went over to start the car, and I noticed that 2 of the hubcaps were missing from the garage. All of a sudden, my feeling about the Cadillac sank significantly. The way I felt about it. Now, it was a little bit of a hurt associated with it, right? A betrayal. And now that beautiful Cadillac was defective in some way. So what I'm getting at is the object that made me feel so good temporarily was tampered with. Now, it still was the same car. It ran the same way, and no difference. But the hubcaps were gone. And something about that diminished it, and the feeling about myself was diminished along with it. Now, let's pay attention to how this happens in our lives all the time. As ridiculous as it is, I admit it. But in that moment, something diminished. And what that points out to me, it's an observation, is this: that what we really want is not the things we think we want. What we really want is the feeling that's produced by obtaining those things. And that's all we want. Because the things lose their dazzle very quickly, don't they?
Absolutely. We're on to, the next thing.
We're on to the next thing. And even if they didn't steal my hubcaps, a month later, I walk in the garage and I go, there's the car,
Yep.
I get stuck in
I'm
traffic.
used to it now, right? Yeah.
All I think about is the rotten traffic. I don't think, I'm driving in this nice car.
Right.
And the other people stuck in traffic could care less that I have a nice car. They just want me to get out of their way.
Right.
So the idea that I'm trying to emphasize is that our mind would tell us that we want this, and this. And the feeling of want is a very painful feeling. It's a feeling of incompleteness. If you look up the word want in the dictionary, it's really kind of a terrible word. It means lack, poverty. It's a low energy idea, but that feeling of lack or that something's missing, unfortunately, is really the motivating factor for most people.
Mm.
Something's missing in their life. They feel this wantingness. Even though the Bible says thou shalt not want, doesn't it?
Right.
But no one pays attention to that stuff. They memorize it, but they get
right.
up and they want all day long.
Yeah. Yep.
So the want will subside temporarily when a certain thing is gained. And one feels happy. But why is there happiness there? Is it because the thing has been gained, or is it because the want subsides? Right? That wanting feeling goes away for a flash of time, and one feels liberated, exhilarated. Oh, it's a sense of fulfillment. And the mind says, good work, you got the car. That's why you're happy. No, I would beg to differ. I would say the happiness, as fleeting as it is, comes because there's a cessation of the wanting feeling. And that's why there's happiness there.
Wow, that's cool. That makes sense.
Completely. We don't like to look at that because it challenges basically how our whole culture operates.
Sure. Well, and, I think you and I have talked about this, that the stuff is cool and fun. You can have a great time with the stuff and the cars and the money and the house and but you're right. It's that ache, that wanting, which I think wanting feels inherently like it's full of struggle. That's the part that, boy, if we could just, have that be gone and then just play with the stuff, that would be great, because then we're just playing with stuff. Do you agree with that?
Well, you're playing with stuff. It's not playing with you.
Exactly.
Right?
I love that.
Yeah. But it plays with us, and it doesn't play nice.
True.
In fact, it's a burden, because sometimes we get some really, really major stuff, and what's our concern? Oh, my God, what if something happens to the stuff? What if we lose the stuff? What if we have to share this stuff with somebody else? What if someone takes the stuff? Believe me, in my business, I'm involved with the real estate industry. I have seen horrific examples of this. I had so many clients and people I knew well that were extremely, quote unquote, successful in the sense of they owned lots of stuff. They had lots of money. They had lots of very high level lifestyles. And they were utterly, totally lost every aspect, every last penny of it. And it really shows who they are, because some of them, I had lunch with one of these fellows the other day. He had assets of $200 million at one point or more. And then within 3 years, he wound up owing that much, but he only had one. So he had to go bankrupt personally. And this was a man who built these big hotels and office buildings and all over the country. And he talks about it openly now, and he's very successful again. He's back in the law practice representing people, and now he knows everything about real estate development, including how not to do it and how to avoid. So he took that catastrophe, quote unquote, and he used it to learn and grow, and now he's on his way back up to wherever that's going to be. But he's happy. I could feel the peace within in him, and I was really, really, really impressed with that. He's a peaceful person. He's doing what he loves to do. He knows what it is to have things. He knows what it is to lose things. That's a lot to learn, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But basically, what I'm saying here is, if we can find a way to connect with that source of abundance that doesn't need anything, it has no want, it doesn't understand the concept of want, because it's complete already. It can't want anything. It doesn't know how to want. From there, it's a matter of not wanting. It's a matter of intention, or having a desire to create something. I'm kind of careful not to use the word want after this, although I'll probably slip a few times just because that's the way we talk.
That's okay. Okay, so it's not necessary to struggle and strain in order to gain abundance, is basically what that means, right?
That's what I'm saying. Doesn't mean you don't have to work hard. Working hard does not mean struggle or strain necessarily. It means putting effort out. But struggle is more of a concept based on, it's just another word for want. It's want put into action is struggle. I never heard that one before either.
Wow, yeah, say that again.
Struggle is want put into action.
Ooh, wow.
If we didn't have that wanting, lacking feeling, we wouldn't have the sensation of struggling, would we? We could say we worked hard, right? But that's an exhilarating feeling, I think, if you're working.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel good when I work hard, when I'm being productive. But if you feel like you're struggling, that's wantingness continuing over and over and repeating itself through action. And those actions are not effective, those struggling type actions. Because first of all, if you use the word struggle, that means that you're not using your full energy potential, right?
Right.
If you had the energy available to you, you wouldn't experience struggle. You'd still experience fatigue, you'd experience maybe some disappointments or whatever, but you would not use the word struggle, I don't think.
Well, my brain literally just, when you said that, so that really, if we think about it, that's the difference between forced action and inspired action. Forced action is what you just said, wanting turned into reinforced by the action of struggle, right? So
beautiful.
Exactly. I love that because you're right. You're not using your full resources. You know, if you watch any sport and you see someone, an athlete who like they're in the zone, quote unquote, it seems effortless. Of course, they're working hard, and you're right. That's exhilarating, right? That's exciting. That's inspired. But if they're in one of those days where they're just fatigued and their legs are heavy and then you see them struggling, and it's almost like, well, you're just going to make it worse for yourself. I mean, you can see it on a physical level so clearly when it's a sport, right?
Yes. But I'll tell you what. I remember when the Chicago Bulls were on their roll back when Michael Jordan was there. And it was a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
And he had the flu and he had 103 fever.
Yep.
And he was on fire through the fever, and he was also on fire with his playing.
Right, but he probably wasn't struggling.
And he was not struggling. His body was struggling mightily. Yep. Every limb in his body, every cell in his body was going, please just get me the hell out of here and let me sleep or go to the hospital. But he, whatever that he is, we can talk about that a little bit, did not experience struggle at all. It was just this fulfilled experience, sensations, action happening, but not being done by anyone in particular.
It's true. It's almost like because his mind wasn't participating in the struggle of his body. Whereas sometimes if you see someone, like I was saying, where they are clearly struggling and they know they're struggling, their mind is participating. They're going, oh my God, this isn't working and I feel terrible today and why can't I just make so it's almost like if you choose to not participate in the struggle, but that sounds so much
Well, I'm going to say something
easier.
I'm going to say something that may sound a little extreme.
Okay, great.
That the mind is a struggle in itself. What is a mind? A mind is really a collection of thoughts that's adopted a story, that it is something, some separate individual. Now, once it adopts that story, there's a struggle to survive that never stops. If you are a separate, independent entity, a mortal being at the mercy of the elements and other people, no matter how nice of a person you are, how successful you are, if that's the totality of your identity, not to say everybody has some of that for sure, but if that is what you completely identify with, and you have no other sense of what you are other than that, how could you not struggle? You are food waiting to be gobbled up by somebody or something.
Right.
That's all you are, and you are doomed. There's no way you're going to survive, ever. You may thrive for a little while, but then either there'll be a change of fortune or your body's going to wear out.
Right.
So if one is functioning from that mind, then it's a struggle. Now, I'm not saying we don't use the mind, we don't value it for its knowledge, its accumulation of information, and creativity. That's not what the mind I'm talking about.
Right. I'm
talking about the identification with it, that I am this mind. I'll never forget, this woman, Barbara Walters, amazing woman. She had Deepak Chopra on her show one day. And Deepak was talking about that, the mind is not the self, and that and Barbara's reaction was, angrily, she blurted out to him, "I am my mind." I'll never forget that as long as I live. But
wow.
this is how powerful the identification with the mind is, because her mind has gotten her a long way, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And she's very proud of it, and she identifies with it totally. But that's a sad thing to me. Not to say that you don't acknowledge it and you're deeply grateful to it, but if you are the mind, you're in a bit of trouble. So this is the mind that struggles.
So interesting.
Right? This is the mind that struggles, because how could it not struggle? It's trying to survive. It's literally, it feels lacking survival all the time. It needs to survive, whatever it takes. Maybe it survives by being nice and helpful.
Interesting.
Maybe it survives by being conniving and cruel. It's the same thing. It's wanting to survive.
Motivated by surviving. Yep.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
So what I'm saying is, if we somehow become familiar with this source of abundance, which I'm calling it, we don't have the need to survive from there, because we have a certainty of this inexhaustible nature of this.
Now, here's the thing that just popped into my head, and this is so funny. I was like, you said, well, then, we're not going to have that need to survive in there, that insatiable need. And into my head popped, well, then what is everybody going to do? And the reason is, I say that sort of with a smile on my face, because that's it's sort of what you were saying about Barbara. Well, that's what people know how to do, right? And this is important, and I'm so glad you're here, because I think you're going to have a lot of insight into this. So many people, the group of people that show up for these calls, Bill, they are extraordinary. And they're so open. Okay, so I know that most of them are sitting here listening going, yep, this makes so much sense. And it even makes sense that Bill's saying, abundance is our basic nature. But because I've been trained to survive and struggle how do I make that shift? And so what would you say? What's a good even first step?
The first step is seeing it and being aware of it. It's a huge step. Doesn't mean you even have to change it. You cannot, I promise you cannot change it by using your mind. Because the mind doesn't want to change that. The mind wants to continue on as a mind.
Right.
So it's not going to help you, in a sense, go beyond it. It wants to hold on and be the focus of your attention and your whole identity. So your mind will say, oh, let's go read this book, or let's go take this course, or let's go do this and that. And I'm saying do all those things. It's wonderful, because it definitely helps soften the grip of the mind, for sure. I've taken a bazillion courses, and I continue. I listen to all these incredible interviews on your program and some of the other ones, and I can't get enough of it. But part of me also knows that the truth is beyond all these things. It's beyond what I'm going to say, what I'm going to do, what anyone else is going to say, what anyone else is going to do. And the important thing is to truly realize that the mind cannot really bring you all the way home to this. Because it really, and deep down inside, its intention is to subvert you eventually.
Right.
It wants to grab you back in. It's like Michael Corleone. I keep trying to get out, and they pull me back in. It's the same. It's the same thing. And it never gives up until it does. Until you just get so convinced and so connected with that truth of what you are, which is not the mind. Then the mind goes. It remains in its proper place as a tool.
Well, and I love that you say that it is a tool, and it's a tool to be honored, but it's not. It's not
to be worshipped.
The be all end all.
It's not to be worshipped.
Perfect. That's a perfect way to put it. It's a tool to be honored and to be used and to be activated. But you're right. It's not to be worshipped, and it's not there to run you. Okay. So here's the next question then, because you say visualizing abundance without direct connection to the source of abundance is ineffective. So how do we directly connect to the source of abundance in order to visualize abundance?
What I would say is, there are many ways to do it. I have a very good way of doing it, and so do many of the people that you've had in the program have phenomenal techniques to do this. But these are temporary things. What I'm saying is, when we become familiar with that source of abundance, we start to know that what we are is infinite abundance. Now, when we resonate with something, truly resonate with it. Now, when I say we resonate with something, it doesn't mean we think about it with our mind. We could think about something. We could write it down and repeat it 1,000,000 times. Now, yes, it will definitely be in our attention will be on it more. That's good. I'm not saying it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
However, if we don't resonate with it, it's not going to stick. Because everything, we're like a magnet. We magnetize our own vibration to us. So if we're inwardly in a state of turmoil and wanting and lacking, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and we have an object that we want to obtain. It doesn't have to be an object. It could be we want to be happy. We want to be prosperous. We want to bring in our mate or our partner. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Another feeling of lack, which brings that about for most people as well.
Mm.
So we have this inner reality of lack and want and being incomplete, and we use that in order to produce abundance by thinking. And my opinion is that the results of that are going to be rather feeble, because we're not vibrating, we're not resonating with abundance itself, and we're not going to attract it. There's some people that effortlessly obtain incredible success. If you ever sit down and talk to them, they don't feel a sense of lack within themselves. Yeah, they want to go out and get something. They want to produce something, create something. They just go do it.
Right.
And it seems to find them and bounce right back to them, or even find them even when they're not looking for it, right?
Right.
There's something in them that vibrates to that.
Mm.
And then the outer expression of it will follow spontaneously. Now, your question as to how, your whole life is devoted to that question, isn't it? Even your name.
Which is hilarious, because sometimes I'll tell people, look, stop thinking about the how, which seems counterintuitive because I'm telling them to stop thinking about me, but that's not what I mean.
Well, the greatest spiritual traditions from the East all involve inquiry.
Right.
Don't they?
Mm.
So if you just ask how or who or anything like that, deeply ask it, there's a huge revelations that will come to you. So how do we do this? How does that happen? Or what is really happening? Or who am I? Or who are you? Or what's going on here? These are phenomenal questions. You know why they're so great? Because the mind cannot know the answer, truthfully.
Right.
All the mind can do is regurgitate what's already been downloaded into it, either through what we've learned before, or our culture, our schooling, our parents, whatever. So if someone asks how we want to figure it out, we can't figure it out because we only have a very limited database. Even with Google, it's still
right.
it's still objective information that doesn't get to the essence of anything. How do we connect with it? First of all, I don't want to give the impression we have to connect with it, because we are that.
Mm.
What we're doing is we're losing the grip of the lie has to be loosened. The grip of the false sense of abundance from things and people and situations has to be loosened or diminished. Once that grip is diminished, we are already the abundance. We don't have to gain it. We don't have to. There's nothing to pursue and nothing to get. That's the bittersweet truth of this. I say bitter because we struggle so much in complete futility because we don't understand this.
Mm.
When we let go of the sense of struggle or want, what we feel is abundant, spontaneously. We can't help it.
You're right.
Right? It's like darkness is nothing but the absence of light. It's not a thing. Wantingness is not a thing. It's the absence of this knowledge of what you are. It's darkness. So you could say it's an aspect of darkness. So the energy waves, to bring it a little bit more direct, will give us a sense of this inner connection, this quietness, And the quietness is so comfortable and familiar, even though many people never experienced the quietness before they have the energy wave transmission. They still feel somehow that it's not foreign. It's not some weird thing that someone did to them. They feel, oh, this is what they mean when they read all these books and stuff, you know. It's so utterly simple. It's just the direct experience of these levels or layers of our own self that are just so infinitely quiet. But at the same time, they have a tremendous vitality and power to them. But it's not an individual power that has an individual agenda. It's more of you could say, a universal sense. So when we can get familiar with that universal sense and project an intention from there, we're bypassing that wantingness completely, together with all the resistances we have to that. We have a bazillion resistances to getting these things that we think we want.
Right.
And there's some really wonderful people out there that teach us how to let go of a lot of these different blocks and these different beliefs. My work is nothing like that at all. And I think we should all pursue the other kinds of work as well. What my work does, I hate to use the word work, but with the stuff that I do, is more about just going into that silent field and getting familiar with that. And essentially bypassing all this conditioning and all these wanting and all this other stuff, even for the few minutes. And even when we do it, if people are moved to get the MP3s, if we do it frequently or regularly or even occasionally, we get more and more familiar with how that feels. And because it's nothing but our own self, it starts to spill over spontaneously into our life without really trying to do anything. Now, if we were also pursuing some of these programs where we learned a lot of techniques as to how to actually access these things and how to actually consciously deprogram ourselves, those are going to be much more. Those are going to be much more successful too, because it's not some foreign thing we're looking for. It's something that we already know, we already feel, and they're going to be tremendously. They're already effective. Don't get me wrong, but they're going to be tremendously effective.
Right. It sort of opens up the power of it because it's opening up our realization of our power.
Absolutely right.
That's so cool.
So my contribution is not to give people any tools really to use with their mind. Not that it isn't good to do. It's just not what I do. To me, the highest priority for me to convey to people is this, you could say almost a nonverbal experience, which is not a meditation and not a visualization. It's an experience. Now, then what I do is I also have manifestation processes that I've come up with. But these processes are not used until we're very deeply established in these wave frequencies. So that when we do this manifestation processes, we're functioning from that level of abundance already. So we're vibrating at that level, and then we attract that more rapidly.
Oh, that must be much more rapid then, because
much more rapid.
You know, yeah, that makes complete sense. That's so amazing. Okay, so I would love, I know I told everybody that you were going to do an energy wave transmission. Can you do that with us now? Is that something that
Well, I would, but I've got a pie in the oven.
I have to wash my hair. Yeah, you know. Well, thank you so much. No. Yeah, is this a good time for that?
Yeah,
because it feels like
wonderful.
now we're so, or at least, you know, we're so excited by this feeling.
Well, I don't want us to be too excited because these waves aren't exciting. They're the opposite of exciting. They're de-exciting.
Yep. You know what? It's the concept. So our mind is excited about them, and I think that's great because even our mind is excited about it, right? The
mind thinks it's exciting, but I've got bad news for the mind. The mind may have to go away.
Yeah, exactly.
And people find, well, when I'm kind of joking, but people find that I had a young fellow in my office the other day, a 20-year-old guy with severe OCD his whole life. And he's never, ever experienced quietness in his whole life, ever, during his conscious life. Maybe he sleeps a little bit, but he doesn't remember that. But during his waking life, it's constant noise, constant, utter, relentless noise, and uncomfortable thoughts and unpleasant feelings one after the other after the other. And after sitting with, doing some energy waves, 15, 20 minutes, he was utterly silent. And it was unbelievable to observe. And his face went from this scared little kid's face to this, like a sage, the face of a sage. I was so honored to be in the same room with him. I really was.
I'm sure.
Incredible.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So that's the value of this process. And that's really the value of it, bottom line. And then we can add things to it with the manifestation, because once we're established, at least to some degree, I'm not saying 100%, but more than ordinary life will be established in that. And then we project intentions from there.
Ah.
So you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's sort of like the Turbo Express.
Yeah.
Because it's such fertile ground at that point. I mean, that's a good way of putting it.
In other words, it's already accomplished everything.
Right.
It's like the old saying, you have to have money to make money. If you're a billionaire, you can go out and produce billions more. You have resources. You don't have the sense of lack or fear. Oh my God, what if I spend a little too much on this and that, and what if it doesn't happen quickly enough? I'm gonna lose everything. So that's a good analogy for it. So we are trillionaires already in the sense of this abundance, which is our own nature. So once we know that or feel that trillionairism or trillionaire-ness, then we just go out and do it. Hey, if this doesn't work, we'll take a little turn here, and we know it's going to be done. Nothing's going to stop. There's nothing can inhibit it. So that's an analogy. It's not exactly the thing, but it's an analogy.
I love it. That's perfect.
Anyway, so what I'll do is I'm going to do these energy waves for everyone, just so they can have a little bit of an experience of it. Okay. So let me just get in the mode here to do this. And
okay.
If people are able to sit comfortably with the feet flat on the floor, that's best while we're doing this. If you insist on the yoga full lotus, if you can do that, go for it. But traditionally it's thought that this energy work is best with the feet flat on the floor for the way the circuits of the body work. I'm not obsessed about it, so if you don't like to sit, if you'd rather sit some other way, go ahead, but it's considered optimal to have the feet flat. And then what we're going to do before we start the energy wave, the first wave rolling, is I'm going to ask you to become aware of a center of energy in the ground underneath your feet. It could be a few inches down, it could be even deeper into the earth, if it feels that way. And just go ahead and plug into it like you'd plug in computer into an electrical socket. If you're not aware of that center of energy, you can imagine it. That's just fine. So plug in. And then there's a power switch. Switch that power switch on. Start that current flowing. Now, I'd like you to become aware of another center of energy above the head. Could be a few inches, could be higher, wherever it feels appropriate for you. Go ahead and plug into that and switch on that switch. All right. How are you doing so far, Kristen?
Great. I get this vibrating thing that's happening.
Okay. Very good. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to start the first energy wave. There's basically three primary waves. The first wave is called the clearing wave. The second wave is the awareness wave, and the third is the healing wave. So I'm going to start the first wave, which is clearing. and we'll let that run for a couple minutes. And then what we're going to do is we're going to weave in the following wave after that, and then the following wave after that. So we'll start the clearing wave right now. During these waves, I always recommend is that any feelings that come up, strong emotions or physical sensations, if we could just let go of resisting them, just welcome them as best we can. We don't need to use any effort. We don't need to try and help the waves in any way. This is a non-doing. This is not something we have to do. We don't have to meditate or try to assist in any way. Just be open and let it happen. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to weave in the next energy wave, which I call awareness. And we'll let this run for a couple minutes. If there are any strong thoughts, no reason to resist them or try to make them go away or stop. The waves will just take care of it. So we can let go of any sense of control or manipulation of thoughts. Doing okay, Kristen?
Doing great.
Mm-hmm. Now what I'm going to do is weave in the healing energy wave. And the purpose of this wave is what it does, it amplifies our own natural inherent healing power or healing ability within our own bodies and our own awareness. So during this section of the waves, the healing wave, if there is some physical issue or some diagnosis or that someone gave us or something like that, or some concern, if we could just let go of wanting to get rid of it or struggle against it, just let it be for now. Just view it as a sensation. Don't put a label on it. And let the waves of energy do the highest and best for it. So before I mentioned that there's a fourth wave that was discovered a little bit later on. And what this wave is, I call it the synthesized wave, because essentially what it is, it's a combination of the first three waves together. And what happens is that when these three waves are weaved together, it creates something greater than the sum of the three waves individually. So I'm going to let that synthesized wave run just for a minute or two here. Okay, good. Now we're going to become aware again of that center of energy in the ground, under the feet. Just plug back in. And plug in really deeply this time. Allow the legs to grow really long, like they're roots of a tree, down into the earth, really deep, way deeper, all the way down to the core center of the earth. Let those roots really dig in and connect with that center. Just feel that magnetic pull of the earth. That nurturing, invincible stability or certainty of that connection with the earth. And just invite that energy of the earth up through the roots of the legs, up all the way into the feet, through the earth. Then let it circulate all the way up the legs, the back, to the top of the head. And allow it to spill down like a waterfall, back down the front of the body, down to the feet, into the earth again. And then let's invite that energy up again through the roots, up through the legs, up the back to the top of the head. And then down the front, all the way down to the feet, into the earth. And once more, up from the earth, through the feet, up the back, to the top of the head, and then back down front of the body to the feet. It's possible to be completely universal and also completely grounded in the body simultaneously. It's not one or the other. So this is a very brief tour. It's kind of like a coming attractions in the movie theater. How are you doing, Kristen?
Oh, it was amazing. I went through a whole bunch of different sensations, but I love the plugging in and actually my body, I was vibrating at one point, and then I felt myself sort of getting kind of huge at one point.
Mm-hmm.
But it was so cool. I can really see how, as you said, when you then, once you're in, because it's that state that you're in, that then you can inject some of the manifestation stuff, correct?
That's right. And when we do the recordings, we do much more extended dips into these waves. This was what we just did was very brief.
Yeah, I love it, though, because you can really feel how powerful that would be. Like, it literally is a direct connection to source. So as opposed to, having to go through this, that, and the other thing, it feels like, it's like a direct request sort of thing. And I can see how powerful that is. I'm actually, what it makes me want to ask you is, what's possible for people? Are there a few stories that you could share with us from people who have worked with you on this with the?
Yeah, I mean, I have all kinds of the whole gamut of stories from I hate to use the word healings because I don't want to represent that I heal people, but when we tap into this highly amplified healing power that we have, in other words, we're removing the impediments to the full expression of what the body is essentially capable of already. It's just that it's hammered so badly by the mind's attachment to the outer things, and we lose connection with this inexhaustible source, and we wear out. But if we can replenish that, and it's very rapidly and easily replenished, fortunately, then the healing process can really kick in. So I have a lot of stories around that, where people were extremely ill and were quickly recovered from it when they weren't expected to live, and they thrived for many years afterwards. That's happened on several occasions. I don't emphasize that so much because I don't want people to think that it's really all about healing the body or physical problems. But that's a definite side benefit to connecting with this inexhaustible source. Now, other things, my favorite things, of course, that's my favorite when people recover from serious illnesses or they just feel better. The other thing is I work with a lot of people who have depression that have never experienced any kind of happy state, we could say, that very rapidly start to just feel more fulfilled in their life for no apparent reason. I don't tell them to change how they think. I don't give them, affirmations or anything like that. And I'm not saying not to do it. Believe me, I want to emphasize that. But that's not what I do. I help them experience this part of themselves that's already happy or already fulfilled. And I suggest that they question anything else. Is it real? Is it really what you are? And I guide them along those lines. And there's amazingly rapid shifts in people. And of course, when that shifts, they start to have all these wonderful job offers, or they have creative breakthroughs, or they have all kinds of things like that happen. But of course, that's not surprising. That's not the real payoff is the shift in the feeling, the shift in that knowing, that identification with what they are. They start to identify more with that inward source than they do with the outer circumstances. It's like a 180-degree shift. When that happens, manifestations are sort of spontaneous.
Right.
I had a gentleman on a conference call last year from Australia who this is my first session. I did these 4 sessions, about an hour each, one session on each wave. and I think it was the first clearing wave, and he said that he experienced for the first time in his life a sense of inner silence. And he'd been pursuing it for decades through meditation and all these other things, and he'd had glimpses of it. But now he said he's actually living it. That was one of my favorites.
I love that.
That's really what I'm really aiming for, if you want to use that word. It's not so much individual experiences or something we could write home about. It's more of an underlying sense of this evenness, we could say. Now, there could be some flashy or some dramatic experiences along the way. Things happen, miraculous things or these big healings. That's really not what it's about. It's nice when they happen. But what it's really about is identifying with this source as with what you are, or who you are. And when that happens, even to some small degree, the outer shifting of life is really not that big as big a challenge as one might think. It kind of happens.
Right. Well, I can completely see how that would happen. So that makes sense. And I love that. I mean, I love that, it's that really tapping into that, inner happy, that inner source of abundance, all of that, because from there, that is everything. You are the source of everything, and you're connected to the source of everything. So I love that. I think that's so empowering for people. That's what I get excited about. I mean, that's why I get excited about sharing people like you with everyone listening. So thank you.
Well, you're doing a tremendous service to the planet by bringing people in that have something to offer that people can directly benefit from, in the moment. It's really wow. You're lucky to be able to do that.
You know what? And I look at it exactly the same way. I am lucky to be able to show up and do this, to be able to talk with you and experience, what you've just shared with us. I mean, through
you, all these other people will experience it.
Exactly, and then they'll share that, and it's just, it's such an amazing thing. And there's so much. I mean, you've brought so much to this call today. I know there's so much more. As you said, this was sort of like, the preview. We gave so much, and you gave. What
do they
so
call
much,
that? The when they have the coming attractions and
yeah, exactly.
They have like 2 minutes of the movie and
the trailer, yeah.
The trailer, it's like a trailer. But actually, the movie's better than the trailer. It's usually the other way around. I was
going to say, sometimes the trailer.
Usually the trailer has the best parts of the movie in it. And I could have saved myself, 2 hours and just watched the trailer.
Exactly. No, I know, and I know that in this case,
fortunately, I'm happy to say that the actual thing is, basically it's what we just did, but it's much more sustained and more amplified and more, it's deeper because we have more time. Let's face it.
Right. So everyone, and I highly recommend you do this, Bill put together a special offer for you all. To access this page for yourself, simply click on the special offer button that's on this page. And yes, definitely go there. And Bill, go ahead and talk us through what we'll find there, because this is
okay. Well, basically what we're going to do is we have immediately downloadable recordings. And what these are, I should just say real quickly, the energy will come through a recording just as it does in a live call or an in-person session. I won't go into a lot of detail on how that's possible, but let's just say that when you listen to something, you're listening to it now. It's always the now. When that recording comes on, you will be there at that time. Now, the energy, this type of energy is not bound by location or sequential time, because it's not really from those realms. It's from we could say the transcendent. And there's nothing mysterious about it. It's just that aspect that's not subject to time or location. That's why the energy can be sent to anyone anywhere in the world instantly. And it's also why the energy will activate, even though, this is being done now, but it'll be a different now when some people listen to it, quote unquote, later. But it's no different.
Right.
Right. So these recordings, it's not just you're going to be listening to a talk or something like that. It's an actual transmission of energy, which will happen the same as it would listening to a live call or being a part of a live event. So the first wave is the clearing wave, and we go very, very deeply and more sustained. There's several dips, we can say, into that wave. And we get a much deeper clearing and cleansing effect from that. Then the following session is all completely devoted to the awareness energy. We get a very clear experience of a very expanded state of consciousness or awareness, where we really do feel that universal source of ourselves, completely beyond the thinking mind. So that's going to be entirely devoted to that wave. The third session is completely devoted to the healing wave. We go very deeply into that energy and have an opportunity to really stir up the power of our own body's healing resources and healing potential, which is really way beyond what we think it was. And then the fourth session, what I call the synthesized wave, is where we weave those waves together like we did tonight briefly, but we're going to do a very long, extended dip into the synthesized wave, which is a very, very high frequency energy, which kind of brings us up to an ascension process where we just go higher and higher in our frequency and comfortably able to sustain it. And then the next section, which I call the manifestation, actualization section, is really, I enjoy tremendously doing that. Basically what we do is we produce those waves, and from that, as we talked about before, from that state of being established in the waves, then we produce intentions to produce manifestations.
Okay.
And what I've done there is, that's about an hour long, but then I've divided it up into different tracks. So once we would listen to all these recordings at least once all the way through, which I really emphasize it's important to do instead of jumping right into the manifestation thing, because we won't get the most out of it then. We want to really get established in the waves, listening to one, at least all the way through one time in sequence, or more than once if possible is better.
Right.
But once we've done that, listen to the first 4 sessions, then we go into the manifestation session, and we take quicker dips into it. In other words, we're getting more and more accustomed to it and more skilled at accessing these waves and producing manifestations quickly instead of having to spend a long extended time. We need to spend that more extended time initially because we're becoming accustomed to something, right?
Right, of course.
We have to culture the nervous system and the brain and all these parts of ourselves into becoming more used to dipping into these energy waves. But then once we get used to it, we can do it more easily, like anything else, like learning anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the manifestation, what I call the manifestation trigger, is a series of short, powerful processes, which are quick. In fact, the 3 tracks I've produced at the end, one of them is about 15 minutes long, one of them is 10, and the last one is only 5. So after a while, we can just click into the shorter sessions, and bang, we're right there. But I would reemphasize that for at least for a couple times, if not more, we would listen to the first 4 sessions and really get kind of used to being in those waves and functioning. Then it becomes much more simultaneous and much more spontaneous as we get used to it. So that's basically what this program is going to do. It's going to gradually, step by step, get us deeply into a familiarity with these waves. And then once we've established that familiarity, we get into these rapid-fire manifestation processes.
Wow, I love that. So exciting.
If you haven't yet, just click on the special offer button on this page to see for yourself what an amazing package this is.
Bill, you're just awesome. I love your whole approach to everything. I love how you're so authentic, and I love that. You fully bring yourself to the call, and I really appreciate that. Is there anything you want to share with us before we head off today?
Well, first of all, it takes 2 to tango. And you're the one who drew it out and facilitated it so masterfully, and I just really, it's such a great thrill for me to be on your program. I appreciate the opportunity. And what was your other question?
Just, if you were to say, this is what I want you all to take away right now from this call, something that, I want in your brains as you
I would
leave.
say the most important thing is this really fully understanding that this wantingness is not going to get us anywhere. And that what we really want, quote unquote, is that feeling of fulfillment. Now that is not only already there, but that's what we are in our deepest level, our deepest nature. And once we become familiar with that and connect with that more and more often, that's going to be reflected in our daily lives much more easily because birds of a feather flock together.
Right.
Things that produce fulfillment are going to move towards that fulfillment energy. Like money moves towards money. Like the trillionaire makes money more easily than the broke guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're developing a big, we could say, account of this inner connection with this state of fulfillment, which preexists and is always already there. It's like we discover something that was buried in the yard. It was always there, but if we didn't know about it, we could starve, right?
Mm-hmm.
Finally, somebody says, hey, I suggest you dig in the yard for a couple minutes and see what you find. That's me. I'm saying let's dig a little bit and see what's there. Hey, if it's not there, it's not there. I suspect it's there. And
right.
once we know it's there, it just produces a whole other dimension of possibilities for us. That's all.
I love it. Perfect. I love it. It's such a perfect way to end the call. Everyone, you are absolutely magnificent. And Bill, I just loved talking with you today, and I can't wait till we can do this again.
Oh, the sooner the better.
Absolutely. And until then, thank you so much, and goodbye, everyone.
Bye and blessings.